and welcome to cktivityCon. My name is Vicky, and in this session, I'm going to be talking about how to launch an InfoSec career as a student or as someone who is just starting out in the field. I know it's very difficult to launch a career in any field, and especially in InfoSec, where a lot of the times there is no clear-cut path to help you get started, and there are so many different directions that you can take. And every path sort of requires a slightly different skill set. It could be really confusing and can feel like a maze sometimes. So, how do you manage all of that and launch your own career in InfoSec? So, today I'm here to share with you some of my experience getting started, as well as some of the things I learned along the way that I hope will help you start your career too. So, before we get started, hey, my name is Vicky, and it's great to be with you here today. I am a developer and a hacker, and I currently work at an application security company called Shift Left as their developer evangelist. I also authored a book called The Bug Bounty Bootcamp that aims at helping beginners get started in bug bounties. You can find me on Twitter at VickyLee7. So, one of the questions that I get the most online is, Vicky, how do I get started in cybersecurity? And when someone asks me this question, I often have a hard time answering them because the truth is that there's really no singular or best way to help you get started in cybersecurity. And it would all depend on what you like, what your preferences are, what are your credentials, do you have a degree, as well as what other skills you have. But there are things that are helpful to know for anyone who wants to go into InfoSec, and that's what we'll be focusing on in this talk. So today I want to share my experience with you as well as some of the lessons that I've learned along the way that would help me navigate the process. So a little bit about my background first. I didn't really start out wanting to go into InfoSec. I went to college for computer science and got a bachelor's in computer science. I thought I wanted to become a software engineer. So at first, I actually wanted to build software instead of breaking it. And I took a lot of computer systems courses and got introduced to cybersecurity that way. Like in computer systems 101, I remember learning about buffer overflows and thought that they were really cool. And then I discovered bug bounties. So, as a college student, it was a truly amazing experience, right? Prior to bug bounties, I was interested in cybersecurity too, but I used bug bounties as a way to learn more about security. And it was really cool to be able to start earning money when I was just a student and just starting to learn about the field. But as I hunted for bugs and as I sat in front of my burp suite window, I started to lose my motivation for hunting because I really wanted my work to help me connect with other people. And bug bounty hunting by myself was not really doing that and was making me a little lonely. So that's why I started my technical blog, where I started to write about whatever I was learning at the moment. And I really tried, like, one of the focuses that I did at the start was that I tried to make the blog post really easy to understand, partially because that was whatever I was learning, right? I was trying to reinforce my own learning and review what I learned. But another thing is that I hoped people who were studying the same thing as me would find it helpful and then reach out to me, and then hopefully I'll make some friends in cybersecurity that way. But little did I know, my technical blog was the thing that really kickstarted my career in InfoSec. So, because of my blog, I was able to get some freelance pen testing opportunities. I also got some technical writing freelance contracts, and I started to get invited to speak at different conferences. And That blog also led me to start writing Bug Bounty Bootcamp and led me to start a YouTube channel teaching about security because I also want to teach people who don't prefer reading as a learning method, right? And eventually, the blog also landed me my current job at Shift Left. Yeah, so as I said, when I started my blog, I never really thought that it would become such a central point in my life right now, right? And what I thought would happen after college is that my computer science degree would lead to a software engineering job and I will be a software engineer for my whole life. And that didn't really work out. What ended up actually happening was more like this, where my side hobby, which is bug bounties, led me to explore many different things in the security industry. It led me to explore different areas of things outside of security as well, like writing, speaking, and so on. And it eventually led me to where I am right now. So, here are a few things I learned while navigating this kind of messy first few years of my career in InfoSec. So, the first lesson I learned is that there is more to InfoSec than hacking. So before starting to actually work in the field, I thought that the majority of people who work in InfoSec are either penetration testers or hackers. They all work in breaking into system in some shape or form. But the reality is that InfoSec is really a very, very diverse field. And there are a lot of roles, a lot of things you can try, as well as a lot of specializations that you can focus on. For instance, you can do application security where you help a company develop secure applications, or you can become a developer who knows how to build secure software, or you can go into penetration testing and break into systems as well. Or you can go into digital forensics and incident response. That's also a really big field. And where you investigate security incidents and respond and protect a company after a security incident has happened. You can also go into cloud security, secure software design, operational security, security education, and so on, so on. So hacking and penetration testing, they are the most well-known job titles, but there are so many things to do in InfoSec and so many different types of people in InfoSec. So if you don't think that hacking is right for you, don't feel discouraged. There might still be a place for you in the industry. Like I started out doing bug bounties, right? And then I realized that doing bug bounties full time or all alone is not really suitable for me. And that's why I pivoted and started to explore different things in the industry. So before stepping into like committing yourself into one field of InfoSec or one expertise in InfoSec, really try to explore yourself to the different areas of the industry and the field to try to find something that suits you. You might find something that you have not even tried or even heard of that ends up being a really good fit for you and aligns with what you want in a career, right? So, a good resource that you can use to discover more about the industry is a podcast that I host called Sources and Sinks. So in this podcast, I interview a lot of people with really interesting careers. Like I talked with someone who works in security education. She educates corporate employees about how to be more secure. I also talked to someone who is a hacker YouTuber and a penetration tester. And I also talked with someone who works with IoT hacking. He's an IoT penetration tester and so on. So there's a lot of things to learn about, and there's no need to lock yourself into one career that you think suits the stereotype of InfoSec. And also, so another way to explore different careers in InfoSec is that if you use Twitter often, you can ask about people's jobs on there. And you'll probably find that InfoSec folks do a lot of different things in different domains in InfoSec, and everyone has like a slightly different or drastically different job function, and could be really interesting to hear about what people do. And then, so after you figure out what kind of specialty might suit you, you can start to research and learn the skills that you need specifically for that specialty in InfoSec. So if you want to become a security-focused developer, you might want to study up on the OWASP top 10 vulnerabilities and how to prevent them and so on. And if you want to become a security analyst who protects a corporate network, you probably need to understand networking and bash scripting, right? And finally, if you want to go into penetration testing, you should learn about reconnaissance, how to exploit common vulnerabilities, as well as how to explain technical issues in writing. These are all good skills to have. But the skills that you'll need to have is very, very dependent on the specialty you choose. So it's good to have some idea of what direction you want to go before you actually jump into teaching yourself. And the next thing that I like to add is that after you've determined your direction and you're looking for jobs, don't just go after a single job title when you're looking for jobs. And because in InfoSec specifically, the same role can mean very, very different things in different organizations or even different teams in the same organization, for instance. And a security analyst in a bug bounty platform company can mean that you're triaging reports for a client company, whereas security analysts in another organization, you could be analyzing logs all day. So when you're looking for your first job, don't just rely on the job title to make your decisions. You should instead search for the type of work that you want to be doing and base your decision on that instead. So, for instance, if you see an ad for a pen testing job, try to figure out what type of pen testing they expect you to do. Is it a third party pen testing firm where you'll be testing many, many different products throughout your work life? Or will you be an in house pen tester focused on just that one product? And you should also figure out things like how big is the team? How much time would you be spending on a target? And how much time would be active hacking versus doing presentations, writing reports, or doing other tasks? All of these factors would make each pen testing job a very different work experience. So you definitely need to take these into account because it may or may not suit what you want in a career. And then the next step is sort of figure out in detail what the day-to-day of a job actually looks like. And then you should communicate with your hiring manager or other people in the organization about your expectations on the job as well. Do you like a more dynamic environment and work on a variety of things? Or do you prefer being a specialist and only focus on a few technical tasks? So InfoSec careers are also very diverse in that way that you can have a variety of work environments and you really want to look into that as well as the technical aspects of the work too. So the next tip is that I talked about teaching yourself the skills that you need for a job, right? But how exactly do you do that? So in information security, it's really, really, really important to know how to teach yourself. And I'd even say that it's probably the most important skill that you need to master if you want to be successful in the field. So first of all, teaching yourself is important because if you're a student and you're looking to become a security professional, then knowing how to teach yourself is really useful when you don't have access to a mentor or an official degree program that can train you for that job. And because the field is also constantly changing, it's really important that you master the skills of teaching yourself new things so that you can upgrade your skill set throughout your professional life, even after you successfully launch a career in the field. So let's say that you are trying to self-study to become a penetration tester. The first step to teaching yourself should be identifying the skills that you need to have that career. So a good way to do this is to look at what the syllabus or what the degree program looks like for the topic that you want to learn. For example, if you want to learn programming but you're not sure where to start, Find out what courses first-year computer science students in colleges learn and try to teach that to yourself. And for careers that don't have many college degrees aimed towards it, like penetration testing and incident response, you can go and look at popular online courses and books or online guides or roadmaps to determine the major skill sets that you'll need to have that career. And after you identify the skills that you need, always create a plan of how you are going to teach that skill set to yourself. You need to plan out what are the topics that you need to learn, what are the subtopics that you need to master in order to master that major topic, as well as how to teach yourself these topics and in what order, right? So start by determining the major topics that you need to know, as well as the skills that you need to know, and then break these topics down to subtopics by doing some research. If you're learning about reconnaissance, for instance, you might break it down into active recon techniques and passive recon techniques. Or you can also classify recon techniques by its objective, like you can break it down by techniques for host discovery, techniques for subdomain enumeration, techniques for discovering files on the machine, and so on. Right? You need to break down these big topics and these big skill sets into smaller ones so that you can teach you can teach them to yourselves one by one. And then you could start making a learning plan by starting with the topic that requires the least amount of knowledge about that subject matters, and you should start teaching yourself there. And then you can proceed to learn about things that build on top of that knowledge that you've already learned. So let's say that you're learning recon and you're learning subdomain enumeration techniques. You can start with simple techniques like brute forcing and with a simple word list you found online. And then next thing you can learn about is how to brute force subdomains using permutations. And then finally, you can go on to learn about DNS techniques once you understand sort of how subdomain enumeration works, how DNS system works, as well as after you gain sort of proficiency with the easier techniques. And when you jump into learning something on the internet, I have to say this is that you have to be aware of the resources that you use. So anyone can really post anything on the internet, and the people who teach other people online, like me, for instance, we can make mistakes too. So instead of relying on one resource as your only source of information, you should really, really try to verify your knowledge by using multiple different versions of the same resource. This is really, really important to make sure that you don't learn the wrong thing or you don't just get a limited view on a certain topic. For instance, let's say that you are learning about server-side request forgeries or SSRFs. You can see what different blog posts online say about SSRFs. They might talk about different things or discuss the topic in many different ways, and they might have different insights and tips and tricks about the same topic. And one post might get something wrong, and you wouldn't know unless you take in another person's perspective. So always use more than one source of information and never trust a resource completely when you are using the internet as a learning resource. And you shouldn't be relying on one resource anyway, because on the internet, any blog post or any resource is typically just a few clicks away, right? So take advantage of that diversity of voices on the internet to really expand your horizons. And then final tip about teaching yourself is that you should track your progress by routinely testing yourself. So, because you are executing your own learning plan, you're essentially working as your own teacher, right? And you need to make sure that you are actually on track and actually learning what you should be learning. You yourself are responsible with that. And reading about a topic versus actually retaining the knowledge are often two very different things. And you want to make sure that you've not only read about the topic and sort of learn about the topic, you also want to make sure that you actually internalized it and you can retain it and use it in your future pursuits, right? So there are a lot of ways to test your knowledge. It really depends on your preference. But one of the things that I really like to do is that I like to write down everything I know about a topic and then I go back and reference my notes to see if I miss anything or I got anything wrong. Kind of like, you're writing an essay about a topic, talking about all its nuances. So, for instance, if you are learning about defending against SQL injections, you can try to write down every defense you know against SQL injections, like parameterization, escaping, sanitization, and so on. And then you would explain their differences. What is parameterization? What is escaping? And then also, you should write down what kind of context you should use each defense and so on, because these are all important aspects of the topic. And then afterwards, go back to your learning notes and see if you missed anything or if your understanding on one of the techniques is not quite complete or is wrong. And then correct your understanding from there and then test yourself again afterwards. So, on to the next lesson. The next thing I learned in InfoSec is that the people you know can help you. And the easiest way to get your foot in the door is really through the people you know. Like, I got my first web development job and my first internship through the people I met at university or online. I got my first web development job through a university professor, and I got my first internship through someone I met online. So, and in InfoSec, it's the exact same way. Networking is very, very important. And there are ways to build this connections. There are different ways to build this connection, right? Like if you are currently in college, you can build your connections that way. But there are many, many different ways to build these connections, even if you aren't already enrolled in college, or if you don't already have friends and family who work in InfoSec. And the easiest way to do that is through the internet. For instance, you can jump on social media like Twitter and interact with the InfoSec folks there. Or you can also take online courses and meet the instructor, and then maybe that will lead to more opportunities. Or you can participate in online CTFs with remote teams or answer questions on hacking forums like Reddit. And so these are all great ways that you might meet people with who will offer you opportunities or guidance, friendship, or even just someone to discuss what you're learning at the moment with. So, another very effective way of meeting people is to participate in events. Physical events, especially, are great for this because most of the time you'll be with the same group of people for a long time and you'll have common topics to talk about, right? And people will be more open to conversations with complete strangers during events because they sort of think that you're one of them. Whereas if you approach just some random InfoSec guy on the street, he probably won't talk to you, right? So attending physical events are probably one of the best ways to build lasting connections in the industry because you're not just interacting in a superficial way. You're sort of building a friendship as well. You're talking to people casually, you're talking shop to people, you're talking about technical things, you're going out to dinner, you're going out to coffee. So I'm a great, great proponent of going to a physical event if you can afford it. But yeah, attending physical events can be very expensive, right? There are, conference fees, hotel fees, airfares. For some people, there might be visa fees if you're going abroad. So it's not always available to everyone. But there are sometimes ways that you can get around that. Especially if you're a student, you might be able to apply for scholarships, for instance, or get sponsored by companies or get sponsored by your college to attend these events. I actually attended my first DEF CON using a Google Conference scholarship program, and I attended my very first InfoSec conference, NorthSec, via a scholarship that my university provided. So there are many scholarships available to students who want to get into security. Like the Grace Hopper Conference offers scholarships for female students, and Google's conference scholarship is open to anyone who identify as an underrepresented minority in InfoSec. So that's the one that I really recommend. Google Conference Scholarship. It's very easy to apply for, and they cover everything that you need for a conference. They cover all the expenses, and it's amazing. And they even invite you to private rooms once you're in the event to sort of socialize with Google engineers. And many other conferences they also have individual scholarships that you can apply for, and many times they might even just give you a free ticket or a discounted ticket as long as you're a student. You never know, and it never hurts to ask. But still, even with all these scholarships available, I know that not everyone has the privilege and the time and the resources to actually participate in physical events, right? So, in that case, virtual events can actually bring you very similar benefits if you're willing to devote your time and your energy into actively reaching out to people during the event. So, for virtual events, right, there are many ways and there are many different levels that you can participate. And so you can just listen to the talks like everyone, or you can actively message other attendees and be an active participant in these events. You can ask questions to the speakers during Q&A. You can chat with the organizers and, sort of ask them about different InfoSec topics. So these are all great ways to actively participate in a conference, right? It's not just listening to the talks and learning something from it. You can actually participate actively to get the most out of virtual events. And a lot of events that are physical only before the pandemic are actually becoming virtual right now due to the lockdown. So if you want to attend virtual events, there's never been a better time, right? You actually have a lot more options right now. Like DEF CON this year was hybrid, and so for the first time ever, a lot of people was able to attend DEF CON. And a lot of events like that are going virtual or hybrid. So take this opportunity to explore a lot of the traditionally physical conferences and see if you like them. And so a final tip for meeting people is that who should you reach out to if you want to get guidance or a job in your chosen expertise? And the answer is that instead of reaching out to recruiters or just anyone who works in the same field or the same company, you should really try to talk to the people who already have your dream job instead. So if you want to be a pen tester, talk to pen testers instead of bug bounty hunters or incident response people. And if you want to go into secure development, try to talk to some experienced developers or the security champions at their company. Because InfoSec is super diverse, and an InfoSec person in a different specialty might have no idea about what you're trying to learn if it's not their area of expertise. For instance, if you want to go into IoT security, I probably can help you because that's not my level, that's not my area of expertise. So you get a lot better guidance on exactly what skills you need, as well as what working the job on the day to day actually feels like if you talk to and find the right people. So that brings us to tip number 4. So just like how people are meeting people are changing, how people are getting jobs are also changing. And you should understand that now your online presence functions as your resume. And it's something that people will look at the first thing when they're considering working with you. So try to have some form of online presence for your professional life. Even if you don't use social media in your personal life, try to have like a profile that showcases your professional history. This can be something like a LinkedIn profile, a Twitter profile, or even a Facebook profile or a personal website that really lists what you can do and where you've been in your life. For instance, you went to, technical college, and then you got a graduate degree, and you had an internship in so and so company. You really, really want to make this visible to strangers, and you want to make this visible to anyone who might search for you online. And then you should also link your professional profile to a portfolio that showcases your abilities. And you can do this really whatever you like, however you like. And a portfolio can mean a lot of different things, right? For instance, it could be a technical blog where you talk about the bugs you found, or it could be a technical YouTube channel where you explain application security best practices, or it could be a GitHub profile with security related projects and so on. It could also be a bug bounty profile with a few disclosed bugs. The goal is to really have a reliable way of showing what you can do professionally. Like going back to the online profile point that I made, is that those really just uh, outline the very rough sketch of what your professional history looks like. Your portfolio can tell the employers in detail what you can actually do. And so, if you were a penetration tester in the past, what kind of penetration testing did you do, right? Are you more of a cloud person? Are you a web person? Are you a social engineering person? Your portfolio can tell the employers that. And it's also a way to showcase sort of your non technical skills as well. Like writing a blog post also shows that you're capable of writing well and you can express your thoughts through writing well. And that's a very valuable skill in a lot of InfoSec careers. And having a YouTube channel shows that you can present well. And that's also a really, really valuable skill in any industry. So I actually know a lot of people who got their jobs or their freelance contracts because of a YouTube channel or their technical blogs. So these are great ways to prove the skills that you actually have. So another thing I realized is that getting a job in InfoSec or succeeding in your InfoSec career is not always about becoming the absolute best in the narrow field of expertise. So instead of choosing a single technical skill and only studying that skill, if you can also find a combination of skills that make you unique, you can have a good career as well. So you don't always need to be a specialist. You can be very good at certain combinations of skills, and that could also make you successful. For example, if you have bug bounty hunting skills, you can become a bug bounty hunter. But if you also have good communication skills, in addition to bug bounty hunting skills, you could become a bug bounty triager or maybe a pen tester as well. And if you understand also how to write good code that prevents vulnerabilities, then you could become a very good developer who is security conscious and is capable of handling the bug bounty reports that are sent to your application. So each unique skill combination that you have can open up a lot of new opportunities for you. Like at my job at Shift Left right now, I have to rely a lot on my technical skills and knowledge that I gained as a penetration tester because I need to know about security best practices as well as security vulnerabilities. but I also do a lot of writing and speaking. So those are essential skills for my roles as well. And someone who only has penetration testing skills but cannot write well or speak at conferences cannot have my job, for instance. So this applies to a lot of roles in the infosec industry, is that we need people who possesses a combination of skills instead of a master of a single skill. And those skills are not always limited to InfoSec either. Things like writing, presenting, project management skills, and marketing, these are all very, very useful skills to have that will add to your value if you're trying to launch a career in InfoSec. And they can even bring your career into directions that you did not expect. For instance, a lot of people who go into technical writing did not know that they wanted to go into technical writing, and then eventually they ended up really enjoying it. And a lot of my friends who are security influencers, security YouTubers, they were just started out wanting to share their knowledge, right? And they eventually ended up launching a career doing just that, doing YouTube videos or teaching about security online. And then finally, the last point that I like to touch on is about getting experience. A lot of InfoSec jobs out there are asking you for experience. But how do you actually, get these experience when every job or every internship opportunity asks that you already have work experience, right? So I think experience can come in many different forms, and you shouldn't discount the experience that you've built through informal experience, like bug bounties, GitHub contributions, and technical events and courses, as well as, participate in InfoSec forums. These can all be ways to gain experience in InfoSec, right? And a possible way of getting around not having an InfoSec internship is that you should be transparent with your employers and show them what you've learned during these informal experiences. And you should document these experiences that taught you something about InfoSec and then proudly showcase it to employers or potential freelance clients. So you can, for instance, show employers some disclosed bug reports that you have wrote, or show them a security patch that you applied to an open source project, or having an internship or a job. They are great ways to learn, but they are not the only ways to learn infosec skills, and you need to communicate that to potential employers. So instead of showing that you have job experience, you can also show employers that you have the ability to self-teach, or you have the basic knowledge needed for the job, and that you can work well with others and so on. And these are the questions that the employers are really asking for when they're asking for job experience. So if you can prove that you possess these qualities, or maybe are even better at these qualities than people who already have prior experience, often not having job experience would not be a deal breaker, but you have to be a good communicator in this point. So that's it for my tips to launch a career in InfoSec. Let's go through the tips again as a review. My tips are first to try to explore the diversity of InfoSec careers and keep an open mind to find something that suits you. Your perfect career might be something that you've never heard of in InfoSec before, and the key is to explore as much as you can before committing to the one that you decide to pursue. And the second one is that learning how to teach yourself is the most important skill set that you can ever learn or master. If you are a student who's trying to get into cybersecurity, then if you don't have a mentor or a formal degree program to rely on, you need to rely on your skills and that will help you teach yourself with resources on the internet. And it's a useful skill for anyone, even people who are already in the industry, because the field is constantly changing and you'll need to upgrade your skills as you age and as you move up in your InfoSec career. And the third is that you should build and use your network by reaching out to people in the industry. Your connections are probably one of the most important thing that you have in your career, and the people you meet can really give you guidance and friendship, camaraderie, as well as job opportunities in the future. And you should use your online presence as a way to build reputation and credibility. Above all else, you should always have an online presence because people will Google you before they decide to hire you. So make sure that your online presence showcases what you can do professionally. And you can find a combination of skills that you can excel with instead of hyper focusing on a single topic. InfoSec is a very diverse field, and it's not always comprised of a ton of specialists that specialize in just penetration testing, right? We need people with marketing skills, we need people with speaking skills, we need people with writing skills. And if you have those skills, try to utilize them in your career in InfoSec. And finally, you can gain experience in a variety of ways, even if you don't have an entry level job or internship. You can take online courses, you can go to InfoSec events, you can do bug bounties, you can do GitHub contribution to security projects. So these are all ways that you can gain experience besides having a job or internship. So thank you so much for being here with me today, and I wish you best of luck in your InfoSec career. Thank you. Bye.